From the Wayne County Courthouse in Goldsboro, North Carolina, Wayne Goldsboro Television brings you the meeting of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners. The meeting begins shortly with an agenda briefing, then the regular meeting will begin soon after. Please stand by for the Wayne County Board of Commissioners meeting.
We'll call our Wayne County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Today the invocation, and I think you're going to be making an introduction.
I will. You know, I've never met a retired Marine, and the gentleman who's going to come up is a fine example of that. Serves on the Wayne County Veterans Coalition, Purple Heart, American Legion, and on and on. And more importantly, he is the state chaplain for the Marine Corps League, and a good friend of mine. And he's going to lead us in our opening prayer this morning. Mr. Boyd, would you please come up?
Thank you, sir. Let us pray. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, we're so thankful, Lord, for what you've given us. We thank you, Lord, for this Board of Commissioners, the wisdom that is amongst them, Lord. We pray, Lord, as we go into this meeting, that you would give them strength, Lord, in what they do. We pray that you would give them the wisdom of Solomon, the heart of David, Lord, and the compassion of our Lord and Savior. Father, as they deliberate, we pray that you would help them, Lord, to be together, yet to speak their minds. Lord, we thank you that we have this kind of body. Meet their needs, Lord. Meet the needs of each one here that has an issue to discuss before this body. Lord, we pray you would lead, guide, and direct. In the name of our Lord and Savior, we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I need a motion for the approval of the minutes of January the 5th.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on that? Being none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous approval. And now we're going to discuss any adjustments to the agenda. And Mr. Wood?
Yes, sir. We've got two adjustments to the agenda. One is we'd like to add that you award a bid for the purchase of 3 ambulances. We got the bids in last week after we sent the agenda out, so we'd like to add on that. The second one is we're asking that you authorize the county manager to negotiate a contract with Stewart Cooper Newell, which is an architectural firm, to provide a study of 5 options, 3 renovations and 2 new construction sites for an E911 center, and also the design of whatever option you select. So those are the 2 additions.
And then we also moved one of the budget amendments.
That's correct. So we added
That was item 8 then,
That's right.
and that was what?
264.
Item, budget amendment 264.
That's right.
Okay. Appointment committee.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have several this morning.
Okay.
First, we'd like to recommend the appointment of Vic Miller to the Wayne County Veterans Service Advisory Board. I'd like to put that in the form of a motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on that motion? Being none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous.
Next, we'd like to recommend the appointment of Phil Yelverton to the Wayne County Transportation Committee. I'd like to put this in the form of a motion.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor on the appointment. Any discussion on that? Being none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Another unanimous.
Next, we'd like to recommend the appointment of Jonathan Holland to the Wayne County Farmers Relief Fund Board of Trustees. I'd like to put that in form of a motion.
Okay, motion on the floor. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous.
Next, I'd like to recommend the appointment of William Jackson to the Wayne County Tourism Development Authority. I'd like to put that in the form of a motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous.
And our last one, we have 3 reappointments. We'd like to recommend the reappointments of Ethel Sampson, Walter Cox, Susan Bergman to the Wayne County Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee. I'd like to put this in form of a motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous.
That concludes.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the Appointments Committee for a fine job. I think we've had several of those open for some time.
Several months now.
All right, we're going to move on if we can. We've got public hearing, public comments at 9:15, and then some public hearings at 9:30. So we're going to move on if we can to the consent agenda. Consent agenda, Mr. Wood, if you'll go through that.
We've got 2 items on there. The first is to establish a public hearing on March 1 at 9:30 for public comments on proposed Wayne County zoning map amendments for highways and interchanges for U.S. Highway 70 West, new U.S. Highway 70, or NC 44, Interstate 795, and U.S. Highway 117, and a work session on February 16, 2016. So what Chip wants to do is have a work session with you on the 16th of February, and then the public hearing, the official public hearing on March 1 on this. So that would be what you're voting on for the consent agenda. It's really just setting the date for the public hearing and the work session. Number 2 is the budget amendments, which Allison went through with you at the 8 o'clock meeting, except for the one on the Sheriff's Department. We're pulling that out separate.
Correct.
So that's the consent agenda, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
thank you. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
All right, a motion has been made. Is there any discussion? Again, none. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous approval of the consent agenda. Okay, moving right on into new business. Well, I better not get into that one. That may take more than our 5 minutes there. But let me move on, if we can, to I'm going to hold off on that one as well. The Connect NC bond, yes, we can go to item 4. Item 4 is a motion to approve a resolution supporting the Connect NC Bond Act of 2015. Mr. Wood.
Okay.
I believe we're going to have you read that. That's on page 73 of our agenda.
This is a resolution supporting the Connect NC Bond Act of 2015. Whereas the Connect NC Bond will invest $2 billion in targeted long-term projects across the state. And whereas the Connect NC Bond will fund projects in 76 counties. And whereas the bond will fund $980 million in projects for the University of North Carolina system. And whereas the bond will fund $350 million in projects for the North Carolina Community College system. And whereas the bond will fund other projects for state parks and attractions, local parks and infrastructure, National Guard, agriculture, and public safety. And whereas the Connect NC bond is within current debt affordability as determined by the state treasurer and nonpartisan debt affordability committee, and North Carolina maintains a AAA credit rating from all 3 major rating agencies. And whereas bond financing rates are at a historical low, and this is an affordable choice for the state to make necessary investments. And whereas these infrastructure investments will improve education, talent development, quality of life, and economic development across the state. And whereas the Connect NC Bond Act of 2015 received bipartisan support in both the House and Senate, and is also supported by Governor McCrory and his administration. And whereas Wayne Community College would receive $5,800,000 from the bond issue for building improvement projects, including the Advanced Manufacturing Center and other renovations. Now therefore be it resolved by the Wayne County Board of Commissioners hereby supports the Connect NC Bond Act of 2015 and education and advocacy efforts for the statewide voter referendum in March 2016. Adopted this 19th day of January 2016, Josie Daughtery, Chairman.
Okay, we've heard the resolution. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor to approve. Is there any discussion on the approval of the resolution supporting the Connect NC Bond Act?
I have one question.
Yes, Commissioner Mayo.
Just to refresh my memory, did we ask anything from the county standpoint for the Ag Center in this bond referendum? Was there anything?
We asked, we didn't get it. But we did ask.
We did ask.
Yes.
Okay.
Those projects, I believe, have already been predetermined actually in the
Yeah,
bond itself.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of approving this resolution signify by raising your right hand. And that is a unanimous approval.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to suggest you might be able to take item 3. That should be.
I wanted to kind of hold off
You want to hold up
on
on
3.
You ain't got but 2 minutes.
The ambulances, okay, we can definitely take item 6, which is the ambulances.
All right. This is an item we added with the adjustments to the agenda, but we did receive the bids we sent out on December 17th. We received 3 bids on January 14th, and again, it's for 3. So the individual bids, the low bidder was Northwestern Emergency Vehicles of Jefferson, North Carolina at $128,950. Select Custom Apparatus was second at $129,650, and then the highest was Southeastern Specialty Vehicles, West Jefferson, North Carolina at $131,965. The difference between the low bidder and the second lowest bidder was $700 per ambulance. Normally, you would award to the lowest bidder. However, in this case, the low bidder is in West Jefferson, about 4 hours away. The second lowest bidder is in Falkland, about 45 minutes away. And when you take into account the travel time and cost for travel, if we had to take anything in for warranty work or a major repair, we think the $700 would be more than offset. And so our recommendation is that you go with the second low bidder, which is Select Custom Apparatus out of Falkland, North Carolina, because of the additional cost for warranty and other repair work.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Gurley.
I move that we award the bid for 3 ambulances to the second lowest bidder, Select Custom Apparatus, for $388,950 because there's only a $700 disc per ambulance, and travel disc for warranty repair work will exceed the savings if we use the lowest bid.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on that?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
I just
Commissioner
like,
Aycock.
I agree with Mr. Wood and Mr. Gurley 100%. We've worked with this company in the past. They do, I think, I won't go as far as say outstanding work, but they do good work, and 45 minutes away, they've provided good service in the past. So that's my comments.
All right, is there any other discussion on the matter? Just a quick comment. As you're seeing these ambulances going down the road, every time you see one of them, just think that was $130,000.
That's right.
These things are expensive.
That's right.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any, no more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. And that is unanimous approval of the selection. We're now going to go into our public comment time. It's 9:16. All individuals who wish to speak to the Board of Commissioners are asked to conduct themselves in a respectful and courteous manner. The speaker must be recognized by the chairman as having an exclusive right to be heard. If a speaker intends to have handout materials for the commissioners, those materials must be furnished to the clerk of the board, not to individual commissioners. Signs are not allowed. The public comment period is the time for citizen input and comments on matters on the agenda to be acted on by the Board of Commissioners. Speakers are encouraged to discuss only the items over which the Board of Commissioners have some control. Okay, and we're now open for public comment time. Does anybody wish to speak? Yes, Mr. Drew.
I feel woefully unprepared today to address the multitude of things that are evolving, coming down the pike on public comment. And that public comment is listed on the agenda every week. Someone would think that you would be allowed 4 minutes to talk about, address matters of public comment. One thing in the thing here, it says 45-minute pre-notice. In the paper yesterday or day before, it says something about 10 minutes. I've long sought who represents the county in a free speech law. Where did they get the training? And I do recognize self-education as an answer to that. I understand that there's neither a free speech lawyer or the training for one in North Carolina to meet these needs. That the chairman takes the exclusive right to decide who speaks. That's the role of censor. And that's an unholy task I've been trying to take off these newspapers and other medias that have usurped the market square. When we got life and death issues to address, and they're being censored everywhere else. Life and death issues coming down the pike for these commissioners to address. And that's why I asked Joe Daughtry for his definition of the word forum, that he's saying this is not the forum, and for other matters, and where are the appropriate forums for the matters coming down the pike for this Board of Commissioners to address that may not be on the agenda today? And the question is, if they were on the agenda last week, are they still relevant matters to be addressed during public comment? There's 100 questions that evolve out of this. A while back, I think it was being restricted to once a month. I asked the county attorney, after I spoke one time, the county manager inquired, can this be restricted to once a year? Do you recall your reply to that? Do you? Well, I do recall you said we can, and then you said you can, to restrict public comment to once a year. I asked this Board of Commissioners, do you agree that that was correct then and that it's correct now? All these restrictions, he's saying you can restrict it to once a year. And matter of fact, when the county manager, he said, can we restrict that to once a year? I wanted clarification to what that is. Is it public comment? But it is life and death issues that the crux of that is the contesting of the elections that are presently contested, the 14 and the 15, via an amended elected protest. I would suggest any poll worker go on strike till they got to the bottom of this. 1 minute remaining. The chairman censored me one time before, Joe Daughtry, back in March 6th of 03. Do you recall that? It was a Board of Elections meeting. I was allowed 10 minutes to speak, and then they said they weren't going to hold me to that. What I had to go through to get before the board that time is another story. But they changed the rules in the middle of the meeting, and Joe Daughtry made a motion that I speak no further that day. Fiat justice. Let justice be done though the heavens fall. That's the county motto. I interpret that as let's win the war and lose the peace. I say we get a new motto. All truths, free all. All truths, free all.
Thank you, Mr. Drew.
Chairman, my name's Steve Harrison. I'm the president of the Wayne County Firefighter Association. I'd just like to take a moment to read a letter that the association would like to have entered into the minutes. It's the Wayne County Firefighter Association would like to thank the Wayne County Commissioners and the Office of Emergency Services staff for working together to correct the fire department issues, fire department and other first responders that were experienced in previous radio system. The association appreciates all of the commissioners' work, along with the OES staff, for listening to our safety concerns and finding a solution that not only assisted the fire service, but everybody in Wayne County as far as emergency services. We realize it was not an easy process, simple solution, but it took hours of hard work and negotiations. We will work closely with OES staff to continue to move forward with improvements and updates to the system. Thank you, sir.
Well, just a moment here.
Yes, sir.
if we could. We might want to make sure that we get a copy of that so
Yes,
we can.
I can leave that with her.
I
There you
mean,
go.
to get an attaboy, we want to make sure we get a copy of that.
Yes, sir. I understand.
Thank you
Yes,
very
sir.
much. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask permission to speak. Good morning,
Good morning.
Chairman. My name is Billy Strickland, 112 North William Street here in Goldsboro. Strickland Agner Associates, attorneys at law, representing Jennifer Smith Strickland, who just happened to be my wife as well. She sends her apologies. She cannot be here, and she happens to be out of the state for a little bit. Actually, I believe there's actually several different crowds here to speak on the road out there in Rosewood. And I believe all the county commissioners received a packet from my wife Jennifer as to what a little bit of history of it is. If you do not have one, I have extra copies I brought. But basically, in a minute or two, the Smith family would, of course, like to have it named Isaac Smith. I did some quick research down in the register of deeds, and it dated back prior to 1857. It's all Isaac Smith. Matter of fact, some of y'all even know my son Isaac. That land has been in the family for 11 generations. If you look at the picture at the very back of the handout, it is actually my kid's great-great-grandfather, Isaac Smith. And the second picture of the little boy is actually Mr. Jack Smith, my father-in-law, back in the 40s at his mama's house there off of 5-8, right there in the curve of the yellow house. And really, the family would like it to be named Isaac Smith. I know there's competing names. The Neals were about a mile away from us. I do know that Jennifer said she checked into the Mr. Neal, and we were under the impression there was 2 roads named after Mr. Neal over there in that neighborhood. And then I was just talking to Mr. Bailey, or somebody pulling for the Bailey family. And the Baileys are actually over there too. Matter of fact, Mr. Jack Smith actually owns a field we still call the Bailey Field. It's on the other side of 70. But if you look at that strip of land, at the top is Aunt Polly and Uncle Lehman Smith, used to be on the board. About middle ways is the old homestead that's been there for 4 or 5 generations. And then at the very end, which is where I live, and Mr. Jack Smith owns property. So it's still in the family. And we're not saying that the other names aren't necessarily deserving. It's just that's our family, and that's who we're pulling for, I guess. We would appreciate your consideration for that. And if it gets too contentious, we appreciate just to table it, to maybe do a little bit of research and see if one name wins out over the other as far as you guys are concerned. But as most of you know, in North Carolina, in particular in Rosewood and Grantham and Eastern North Carolina, we're very proud of who we are and very proud of our names of buildings and roads and schools and such. And we'd be remiss not to come up here and actually try to pitch for the Smith family. And if there's any questions, our remaining minute for any questions. Having none, I'll have a seat. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Ronnie Phillips, and I have my name on property that's listed out there on that road. And at the present time, my mother, best of my knowledge, she is the only one that's permanently been there for 65 years now. Jack and I grew up working with Mr. Smith, and I think that I would propose Smith Phillips name on that road. The families were good friends for many, many years, and my mother is 93 years old, Daddy built that house out there, and it's the little house right beside Bill's golf carts. And she's the only one that's a permanent resident that has owned property that's on that road now. So, thank you for your consideration.
I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. Actually, this is the public comment period. We're going to go into a public hearing shortly in regards to the proposed service road naming. So is there anyone else that would like to just have comments on the public comment time? Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Russell Robbins. I'm a Rosewood resident, and I would like to give a copy of this to the clerk. Okay, and I wrote a short letter here that I would like to read to you, okay? And basically, this is in reference to the proposed naming of the road beginning at South NC 581 and extending 1.6 miles west to its terminus at NC State Route Road 1237, which is Community Drive. The proposed name is Emmett Neal Road, okay? And streets are usually named after distinguished or famous individuals. At other times, streets are named after local politicians or local heroes after their deaths. It is of my opinion that streets and roads should be named after people only after the individual has provided the community or county with service of lasting effect. I would like to offer the name of William Gray Bailey to be used in the naming of this road. Mr. Bailey lost his life in the construction of this road. Mr. Bailey was 35 years young, leaves behind a wife and twin daughters. He worked as an NCDOT engineering technician since 2010. And it was also reported that he loved his job. Okay, that quality of Mr. Bailey is a rarity in this day and time. Mr. Bailey lost his life building a road for this community and the citizens of not only Wayne County, but the citizens of North Carolina that will forever use this highway. The ultimate sacrifice was great and should be forever recognized. And I urge the Wayne County Commissioners to reconsider the proposed name and apply the name of William Bailey as the naming of this street/road. It would be appropriate to also use the street type designation as frontage way, because due to its being a subsidiary road running parallel to a main road or highway and giving access to houses and businesses. The Wayne County Commissioners have offered support to name a section of the new highway after Mr. Bailey in the future. But now is the time to take this action and lend your support to this request. Now, if I might add, I think this is really important that you should really consider this, because I'll go back to R.B. Nelson Highway and Martin Luther King Jr. Expressway. Neither of these two streets that you have named or dedicated hold a physical address, okay? If you'll check with the local postal service here in Goldsboro, there is no physical address for Martin Luther King Jr. Expressway. If you were to name this William Bailey Frontage Road, it would contain a physical address, and it would always be remembered that this young man lost his life building this highway that we all use, and it will have a story to go with it, okay? And just instead of someone that owned land or to that, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but I think this is really important, and if you do this, it will not get lost as R.B. Nelson Highway has or Martin Luther King Jr. Expressway has. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments citizens would like to speak during the public comment period? Being none, I hereby close the public comment period. And now we're going to go into public hearings. And the first public hearing is the naming of the service road.
Yes, sir. Official public hearing at 9:30 for a proposed name for, due to the construction on West US 70 Highway resulting in a new service road beginning at South NC 581 Highway extending 1.6 miles to NCSR 1237 Community Drive. The proposed name is Emmett Neal Road. Joining property owners were notified, addresses along that road were notified, advertisement was run in the newspaper, and 2 signs were placed at each end. And again, this public hearing is considering the name of Emmett Neal Road.
Okay, at this time, is there anyone that would like to make comments on the naming of the service road, Emmett Neal Road? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Greg Neal. I'm a resident on Community Drive, and I've been asked to speak on behalf of our family. I can tell you I've got a lot of fond memories of living in this vicinity of this new road. I've spent my whole life working the land. I was a teenager growing up. I can remember back on days like today, I used to walk those woods where this property is at now. And my mother, my family is well represented today on behalf of this proposal. And we'd like you to consider naming this road Emmett Neal Road. I've got a letter that I'd like to read. It was written by my aunt, who spent her whole life in this vicinity. And you'll have to bear with me because her handwriting's getting a little bit shaky now. She's at the Pines. So I'm going to try to read through this. This letter concerns the service road. It's written by Mariana Neal. This letter concerns the service road beginning at South North Carolina Highway 581, extending 1.6 miles of State Road 1237, now Community Drive. I married William Joseph Neal August 31st, 1946, after which we lived with his parents for 1 year, William Emmett and Bessie Hollowell Neal. In 1947, our house was built on what is now Community Drive. The only access to the Highway 70 was a woods path. In that area, there were 4 or 5 farm families with school-aged children who had to walk the Highway 70 to board a bus. A road was discussed among the landowners, but nobody ever took the lead to get the job done. Our house was close to the woodland that had to be cleared. With all the appraisals in place, the new road was in sight. It took 10 feet of our front yard, but that was fine having a state road to get to US 70. William Emmett Neal gave his land, his time, talking to those in authority who was in charge. He was a World War I veteran, well thought of by all families trying to get access to US 70. I'm sure surviving members of all those families would be happy to have William Emmett Neal sign on that road for future children and grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this public hearing?
My name's Marie Daly from Daly RV. I'm not a public speaker, but I did want to say that we are in favor of any community name. Any person that is from that community, don't have a problem with that. Just short name, like a last name, because I am forever having to spell out stuff for people that are from up north, not to offend anybody, but they don't, Neal would be easy to do, Bailey, something like that. But anyway, that's all I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Board, my name is Doug Neal. I'm also here to talk about the Emmett Neal Road. Was asked to speak last night and brought a picture for you guys to see. This is a picture that hung in my family's house, and it's a picture of my granddad serving in World War I. I wrote something about Veterans Day that my mom wanted me to read, and it says, here's a picture that hangs proudly at my house. This is a picture of my grandfather taken in France shortly before the conclusion of World War I.
Excuse me. Could you move over a little bit? They want to get you on the microphone.
I don't know if that's such a good thing.
All right, go ahead.
Here's a picture that hangs proudly in my house. This is a picture of my grandfather taken in France shortly before the conclusion of World War I. He was a soldier in the 81st Division of the 321st Infantry. This division was the first division to use semi-automatic rifles in combat and was the division that served on the very front lines until the conclusion of the war. My mom has a letter from President Reagan shortly after he was elected President of the United States, recognizing him as one of the remaining survivors of the historic infantry. I used to listen to Granddaddy, who we called Papa, as he would vividly recount the details of his experience during World War I. He could remember every detail up until his death at the age of 88. His division fought on the front lines of the war near a town called Verdun. He would talk of the fact that the Americans and Germans were literally 20 to 30 yards from each other trench fighting. He remembered with detail as the war drew to a conclusion, the Americans would attack the German trenches and then would have to retreat under German artillery barrages. In the last few nights of the war, Papa would say the fog was so thick that you couldn't see more than 50 feet. The two sides were so close they could hear each other having normal conversations, and the Germans would literally be walking in front of them in the fog. They would lay in the trenches at night and listen to the Germans, would attack in the morning, and then retreat when the artillery picked up. On November 11th, he said they attacked early in the morning, and around mid-morning, he said the artillery barrage suddenly stopped. The armistice had been signed and the war was over. He often talked about that because it happened at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. He said the Germans appeared out of the fog. They handed over their guns, and the two sides sat and had coffee. So I thought that was pretty important to consider. I know there's a lot of people here talking, we're all good friends, but just ask that you consider his service when you take into account. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak?
I'm Bonnie Neal. My husband was son of Emmett Neal. He was instrumental in getting a road built, which is now Community Drive, and I think, as you have been told, that there was just a path to go to 70. He was also instrumental in getting electricity in the community years ago. The other gentleman was talking about naming a road after somebody that had contributed much. And I thought that was very fitting, and it also fits this case. And I feel that it would be an honor to have the road named after Mr. Neal, considering his contribution to the community and his service to his country. I also realize there is a little snippet of road named Neal Road, and that was named, he developed on his land, he developed a little, he sold lots, and he had a little tree road thing, and he did name a little snippet of that Neal Road. As far as I know, there are no houses or anything on that would be, our address would have to be changed. At any rate, I would like you to consider his contribution to his community and to his country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Anyone else? Being none, I hereby close the public hearing on the naming of the service road. Our next public hearing is a proposed revisions to the ordinance regulating the operation and maintenance of solar facilities.
Okay, yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there will be no action on the service road, as you can, other than the fact we may want to call it No Name Road. But we really will take no action on that at this point. We are going to take that under advisement.
Okay, the next public hearing is to receive public comment on the revisions to the ordinance regulating the operation and maintenance of solar energy facilities in Wayne County. In these amendments, we added definitions for the abandonment and decommissioning plan to Section 3 definitions. We changed Section 3 definition of a residential area from 25 dwellings within a tenth of a mile to 25 dwelling units within a quarter of a mile. We changed the definition of a solar energy facility to add a structural rooftop. We added Section 9, the abandonment and decommissioning plan requirements, and we added Section 10, the aviation notification requirements. This public hearing was advertised in the Goldsboro News-Argus. The revised ordinance was placed on the county website, and in that advertisement, we showed the link so you could go on there and see the full modifications. I believe that is, we had the Seymour Johnson Air Force Base review the recommended changes, and they submitted a letter of recommending it be adopted, and the Wayne County Planning Board recommended it be adopted.
Okay. This public hearing is hereby open, and is there anyone that would like to speak on the revisions to the ordinance regulating the operation and maintenance of solar energy facilities here in Wayne County? Anyone like to speak? If not, we hereby close the public hearing on that ordinance. Just a quick question, if I might, and that is, I did understand you say that the Wayne County Planning Board did recommend its approval.
Yes, sir.
As well as the base did also.
Correct.
Okay.
They have reviewed it. The planning board made recommended changes. The base actually has reviewed it 3 times and recommended approval, and I attached that letter in with your documentation.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board at this point?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
I'd like to make a motion that the proposed revision of the order regulating the operation and maintenance of the solar energy facility in Wayne County be approved as proposed.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on the motion? Being none, all those in favor of approval of the motion signify by raising your right hand. And that is unanimous approval.
Thank you.
All right, we now are going to go to our new business, and that is we are going to hear from the North Carolina Department of Transportation on the street assessment process.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is Giles
Harrell.
Harrell.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, Mr. Harrell.
That's all right.
I forgot your name today.
That's all right. We've been hard at work the last couple of weeks since the last commissioners meeting, making sure we moving forward in time the process, making sure we're on target to meet our commitment to have a estimate in hand to the county manager's office by the end of the month. I do want to update everyone today on what we're noting, discrepancies we're seeing, and what some of the expectations can be. I know there were some questions from the last meeting as far as masonry structures, encroachments, things like that, and so I'll make sure to hit on that too as well while I'm here. When it comes to addition criteria for streets, we look at multiple criteria, main ones being occupancy, minimum occupancy, make sure they're in acceptable state of maintenance and free of highway obstructions are 3 of the main kickers that anytime we do an assessment. That's usually what holds it up. A lot of times we'll have the street designs, we'll have the minimum structures met. So a lot of that is okay. It's the meeting the minimum state of maintenance is what we're looking at and what we're hoping the tax assessment will take care of for the roads that have been petitioned. The main discrepancies that we have noted: pavement failures, illegal structure on the right-of-way, and insufficient drainage and pipe network systems and ditches that need to be reestablished on grade. From the pavement observations, have a lot of severe pavement failures I'm sure y'all have heard about, people driving around them, going in people's off the pavement or off the roadway itself and into the ditches in order to avoid some of the potholes and pavement failures out there. During our assessment, looking at it, it's my opinion that some of the pavement failures were caused by insufficient drainage, which is something that we'll seek trying to, anytime we put something out for bid or under contract for this work, we will reestablish drainage. A full overlay can be anticipated as part of the process as well due to surface cracking, oxidation, and some pavement deterioration on the surface, but it's not major enough that we would have to do any kind of full depth patching or repairs on. So we're going to look to do full depth patching repairs on the pavement failures where we anticipate any issues. If it cannot be bridged, basically with a short section of base pavement, we may have to do some undercutting, getting to the subgrade of the roadway, which is somewhat costly, but it's the right thing to do to make sure it's acceptable to be taken over by the state. As far as encroachments on the right-of-way, we've noted multiple encroachments. I believe we've counted out of 124 lots total that are in this assessment that's being reviewed right now. There are 84 masonry structures present on the road right-of-way, and there are 34 pipe encroachments, none of which appear to meet NCDO standards. So that's the big issue that I know that we've all talked about in the past. So what we would be looking at doing when we come up with contract line items, any highway obstruction that's on the right of way, that's clearly on the right of way, it'll be removed. Anything that spans the right of way line is partially on a lot line and partially on the right of way, we can propose to cut it at that right of way line, which is 30 feet from the center line. Cut it off and remove what is on the right of way, and the rest can be left up to the homeowner to decide what they want to do with it. I would like to mention that some of the issues like this that we've had in the past, some of the head walls have been able to be excavated around them, picked up and moved off of the right of way, should the property owners want to do that before the process comes through. It is an option for them, but what we're looking at doing is in our line item contracts when we're putting together the bid is doing a per each removal for the head walls and any kind of pipe networks. One other thing we noted was that there are a lot of masonry, and the head wall count includes masonry mailboxes as well. I would like to note that only a 4x4 wooden post is permitted on the right of way in accordance with our mailbox guidelines. When it comes to removal of these head walls and masonry mailboxes, the removal will be in accordance with NC admin code, and they're considered illegal structures based on NC admin code and general statutes. That's the basis for our recommendation of that. Irrigation is another thing we noted that is an issue. There are a lot of irrigation lines that come up right to the edge of pavement. They could be considered contributory to, contributing to some of the pavement failures if there is excess water or any kind of damage that's done to it and it's unchecked. So our recommendation and in our policy is not to allow irrigation systems on the right of way as well. For pipe encroachments, after it's all said and done, once the grade is reestablished and the ditches are open properly and we have proper drainage out there, we will consider allowing pipe encroachments to come back in, but they'll have to be in accordance with our guidelines. And we have a very set process on how to do that. First and foremost, the right-of-way encroachment agreement has to be applied for by the homeowner. All materials must be used, must meet NCDOT standards. Basically, you need to have reinforced concrete pipe or double-walled high-density polyethylene pipe. Masonry drainage structures will be allowed to be built or need to be a precast drainage structure with a cast metal frame and grate that is stamped NCDOT approved. Maximum spacing for drop inlets would be 75 feet, or it could be more based on our recommendations when considering the localized topography. MPDES stormwater permits is another thing we have to look at when we allow pipe encroachments on the right-of-way. Basically, it certifies that any pipe that is installed on the right-of-way is not in violation of the Department of Stormwater Permits, which prohibits the discharge of any untreated water into a jurisdictional area. So anything leading up to a buffer zone for a jurisdictional stream has to be, the water has to come through a vegetated swale and cannot outlet directly into that buffer area. So that's something else we have to look at with every pipe encroachment. And we would also need a drawing of the proposed installation and a performance bond to ensure that no damage is done to the right-of-way. So this is all something we're talking about. This is what we will allow after it's said and done, once we take the roadway over, and all the work has been done to get the street back up to the standards it needs to be taken over by the state. We've been working with Mr. Wood. I want to ask that he comment more on the public hearing and what his thoughts are and whether they're going to public hearing and the timelines that they've established. But once the process is completed, once the construction is completed, it is the department's intent to take over these streets that have gone through the tax assessment and gone through the process. So I want to make sure that reassurance is there. We'll be providing inspection while the contract's going on, as well as some oversight, additional oversight and preparations to make sure that everything is acceptable and has been met accordingly. Are there any questions?
Oh, yeah. Commissioner Mayo.
Mr. Harrell, I'm hoping I don't have the wrong, let me ask you a question. I understood that when we, a year or so ago, when this was first started, that the improvements in a subdivision, are they going to be to the day's DOT standards, or my understanding was that they would be put to the original development DOT standards, which is true?
I don't believe the standards have changed. That would have been, I believe this development was built in the early 2000s. Is that correct?
It's pretty
yes.
No, it's over in 2000, I believe it. It's not early 2000.
As far as pavement structure, what we would do is we would look at, make sure that, the minimum depths were met. I believe we have some information on that back at the office. What we run into a lot of times with these subdivisions is they'll be developed and they'll sit out there for such a long time, and that's when you get the illegal structures, that's when you get the encroachments that are not permitted, and that further lengthens the process when we're able to take it over. So it was never recommended for approval by the department. And so if a minimum standard was met or different back then, it would still be built to that. But since the pavement has sat out there and since the drainage has sat out there, anytime you have a residential area, we constantly find that due to constant grass mowing every week, your clippings build up. That's what clogs up your drainage network. So for it to be in an acceptable state of maintenance, we need to reestablish back to the point that it was originally built to. And also, like I said, with including an overlay on that, that's just going to be, we got to make sure we're not taking something over that we're going to have to pave in the next 2 years, because we just don't have the capability to do that. So.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Mayo.
Did I understand you to say that there's some driveway tiles that's that's, did you say they were not properly draining, or were they the wrong size? Which was it?
It's not the driveway tiles themselves. All the driveway tiles we observed seem to be okay. It's the pipe networks between the two. And we have a lot of inconsistencies of what type of pipe it was used. We didn't see anything that to my knowledge, met DOT standards, as well as minimum spacing. I saw a couple lots out there, you'd have 300 feet of piping all across the road frontage with 0 yard inlets. So when the water washes off the roadway from the center line, it has nowhere to go. It sits there and saturates the pavement structure. So we're proposing that anything that's not approved, or pretty much everything out there from a pipe network standpoint, come out and get reestablished back to when it was originally built before the lots were sold.
And finally, could I have one more?
Yes,
This
correct.
last one.
Go ahead.
On the driveway, I call them bulkheads,
Mhm.
that's on each side of the
Right.
driveway. I've been wondering why in a subdivision, and I've seen some of the other subdivisions that the DOT has taken over, I think you're allowed something like a 4-inch
4-inch
driveway curve there
Correct.
instead of the bulkhead. But if you go out on a secondary road, like on Perkins Road or any road in the county, you see homes such as mine that have the driveway bulkheads. So
You might want to back up on that statement.
I'm just asking, why is it that they're all over the place? Look at entrances to subdivisions.
Right.
They have all kinds of brick bulkheads going into the entrance of subdivisions, and I'm just wondering why that is.
I acknowledge they are out there. It's just when it comes to adding something to the state system, if a homeowner puts one out there and they're on a state maintained road and they put a head wall and masonry brick mailbox or structure out on the right of way, the department, that's liability on the homeowner should somebody hit it. It's not necessarily the department's liability because it's not a permitted structure in accordance with administrative code and general statute. So we want to make sure that there are no liabilities on the department. If we were to take over a road and there's masonry structures out there, then there's some liability that could fall back on us because we accepted it with that in place.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, what I'm hearing you say is that people are supposed to get a permit to do those bulkheads and the driveway permits and all of that, right?
Well, we don't issue permits for bulkheads or masonry structures on the right of way.
I know.
So,
My point is, if they had asked you, you would turn it down.
correct.
So if people go out and do that, then they're violating this policy that you have that doesn't allow it.
Correct.
So that's why they're there.
Right.
Yes, Commissioner Aycock.
I agree with what Mr. Mayo said, his last statement. You see them all on secondary roads. But I think it's, for better choice of words, sometimes the public is ignorant to what the laws are. And they don't know that they're not permissible. They just build them and if it's never questioned, that's all well and good. But if so, it's easier for them to ask for forgiveness than for permission sometimes. I mean, but I see where you come from. In these subdivisions, for y'all to take them over, they've got to go. Now, will one slip in sometime and y'all don't catch it? There's a whole lot of roads in Wayne County. Y'all can't look at every single thing, every single driveway.
And we can't, and our priority when it comes to maintenance, clean the ditches out, make sure the pavement is in acceptable state of maintenance for the public to ride on. I know sometimes the opinions might be that we're still not where we need to be on the pavement structure, but we do all we can with the limited forces and limited amount of funds we have. I would say this, that when it comes to a structure like that, if it's, let's say a route came up for a safety project and it's a full-blown safety project for the whole route, I've sent letters out saying they got to come down or we're going to take them down. And the policy reads that anytime that the homeowner receives notification that it has to come down within 30 days, if the department were to come out there and take it down, we can bill the homeowner. So that's something we don't really want to get into with these subdivisions as well. But it's a priority for the department to make sure that highway safety is always there. But also the public that lives along these roads, there is a liability if they do build such a structure on them should somebody hit it, especially with the masonry structures, because you have issues with the bricks coming apart, coming through windshields. That's where the main concern is.
Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner.
Mr. Harris, I have a somewhat related question, not directly related to the ones there, but it is, I think, a state highway question. I think if I understood you correctly, you said you referenced 30 feet from the center of the, and I was trying to get some clarification on what you meant. 30 feet from the center of the highway? Oh, what, sir?
It depends. Some subdivisions are 50-foot wide public right-of-way, some are 60. The ones we're looking at are 60 feet. So from the center line of the roadway, it would be 30 feet.
The reason that I said it was a related question, this is in a municipality, and it is a street, a typical street in a municipality, and no one has built anything there except nature. There's a big tree, and that tree hangs over the street, and it sits right on the very edge of the paved road, and my understanding was, and I think I know that the measurement from the center of the street comes about halfway or 2/3 of the way into that tree.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, who has the initial responsibility for the safety of the community that passes some real big limbs that hangs across, all the way across the street? So where does this liability lay in terms of what to be done with that tree, if anything? Or if it was taken down, who would have the responsibility?
Well, anytime we identify a tree that appears to be leaning or could become a tree across the roadway in the middle of the night, we try to identify those on the front end and take them down. A lot of times if it spans, if it's on the property owner's side, it is still going to cause issues for the highway. We try to make contact with that property owner and make sure that they understand our concerns and why we would need to take it down. If it's a specific tree and you want to talk more about it, I'll be more than happy.
I will. Thank you, sir. I just want to take advantage of the fact that you were here today. Yes, sir, I will.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on what Mr. Harrell said, I think he was asking that I give you a little bit of detail on where we go from here. We'll have the public hearing at the next meeting. And as you know, you adopted a resolution at the last meeting calling for that public hearing. Marcia's done all of the notifications and everything. So we'll hold that public hearing, and that's the first public hearing as required by state law. The end result of that is then you would make a motion on whether to move forward with this project or not. So whether you're authorizing the project. At that point, that'll be February the 2nd. Then, if you recall, our policy now calls for a second public hearing that's not required by state law, but the reason we're adding it is once we have the cost estimates, and as Mr. Harrell said, they've committed that they're going to try their best to have all of that information by January 31st. Then we would call a second public hearing, and at that point, we would be able to take his cost estimate, divide it by the number of buildable lots, and that would be the assessment for each person. Because as y'all recall, what you did in that resolution is you approved the basis of the assessment, and the basis that you chose was each lot. So we would simply take the 122 or 123 lots that are in there, divide that into what Mr. Harrell's cost estimate is, and that would be each property's assessment. And then, of course, you divide that by 10, and that would be the annual assessment over a 10-year period. So we would be then forwarding all of that information to people, and you recall at that point, then people have an opportunity to say whether they still want to be included in the petition or not. So at that meeting then, once you concluded that hearing, and we'll be taking notes on if anybody wanted to be added to the petition or wanted to be deleted from it, then we will tell you whether or not it still meets the 75% criteria. And at that point, if it does, then you would vote to move forward with the project, because they would meet the 75% criteria, and basically so 3/4 of the people are telling you they want to move forward with it with the full knowledge of what it's going to cost. And so at that point, then we would continue to work with Mr. Harrell and his group, who have been kind enough to help us with a pre-construction meeting with the contractors. Also, they will help us with the contract as far as getting the specifications so that we can write an apples to apples, so we can get apples to apples bids from contractors. And just to remind you also, they have a list of approved contractors that they have done business with before. We're not in the paving business, so we don't have any experience with that. So what we're going to write into our ad for the bids is that you must be pre-approved, you must be an approved contractor, paving contractor with NCDOT. And that way we're assured of getting people who've done this in the past with them, and that they feel do an acceptable level of work. As he also mentioned, they've also been good enough to say that now we will pay for the service, but they will do the inspections. And that's critical for two reasons. One, we all want the quality of work that we're paying for. But the other thing is then that way, that will make the process of them accepting the streets better, because they know what needs to be done to what acceptable level to take them over and meet their standard. And with them doing the inspection, they'll be able to guarantee that we're getting that product.
Okay. I did have some questions.
Yes, sir.
First, you indicated that most of the driveway tiles met NCDOT requirements, but you kept mentioning other piping. What other piping are you speaking of?
That's any type of roadside ditch piping, longitudinal piping that basically parallels the roadway. Anybody who wanted to pipe their yard to eliminate the ditch.
So you're saying that there are areas where the ditch was filled in and piping was put in and.
Right.
And
Correct.
Is that extensive?
Pretty much so. We had 34 pipe encroachments that
34?
out of 124 total lots.
And if I'm correct in saying of what you discovered there, that does not meet NCDOT requirements, and all that probably is going to come up.
It would need to be reestablished as the ditch on proper grade would be my recommendation.
The problem.
Now, let me hear that statement one more time. It would have to be reestablished.
Reestablished as a ditch on proper grade between the driveway tiles.
But all of that piping is going to come up if you're going to
Correct.
reestablish the ditch.
Correct.
And the next question I had was you mentioned something about irrigation, the sprinklers that are evidently out there.
Correct.
And that goes into the 30-foot right-of-way, and all of that would have to be removed. Is that correct?
Yes, it would be. And it gets into a maintenance issue for us. If we were going to assume maintenance of the roadway, anytime we would need to do any kind of shoulder maintenance and bring a motor grader in there and clip the shoulders back where it's not allowing the water to drain off the pavement surface, you can pretty much conclude that those sprinkler heads would be destroyed.
And I suppose the last one is going to be a statement. I think all of us are negligent in realizing that 30 feet out there is not ours. I think a lot of people own properties and just assume it goes right up to the pavement. But actually, that right-of-way goes back on their property lines, and it's not theirs. Even though we have to cut it, it's still not ours.
Well,
and I think that's created some of the problems.
And what I tell everybody that brings that same point up to me is I live on a state maintained roadway. I cut all the way to the edge of pavement because I'm proud of where I live.
Right.
I could stop at the right-of-way line and just wait for the 4 times a year that the mowers come by.
How many times a year?
4 times.
How do you get 4? Okay,
well,
go ahead.
everybody gets 4. I mean,
Okay.
that's typical, and I'm quoting typical maintenance practices. It depends on how the maintenance yards are budgeted that year for the mowing, but typically it's 4, and it's typically, the grass only has to be cut 4 inches or higher, and that's considered acceptable from a mowing standpoint. So if you want the flail mower to come by your house once every so often, then that's, so be it. But, so I know there's some frustration there, but everybody likes to maintain the look.
Sure.
All the way out to the edge of pavement. And I do want to add too, I'm no real estate expert, but you probably gonna get some increased property value when you get these streets brought up, to acceptable states of maintenance. And I've heard rumblings that there's been some issues here and there, from lenders and whatnot, and that's what's constituted a lot of this and why it's being brought to the board's attention. But, you know, we're only trying to help, but there's gonna be some, arduous things that have to happen, and people are probably not gonna be that happy about, but we're going along with our policy.
Commissioner Bales.
Just a quick question. Wouldn't it be cheaper on everybody if we come up with a county ordinance where the developer would have to build everything to state standard?
We already got
Huh?
We already got that.
But after they move in, they put in the piping and they put in the sprinklers and so forth.
We've already got all that.
Yeah, but then why the state doesn't take it over?
That's a different ball.
What I'm saying, if it's built to state standard,
Right.
why doesn't the state take it over at the time that when it's new?
What I've seen is, let's say a developer comes in with a LLC and just develops that one parcel, and then the LLC is dissolved. Question comes, who is in charge of the maintenance at that point?
Okay.
If a HOA was not established, or, you know, a lot of times it comes back to the property owners that live up and down the street, and then who individually wants to chip in. Sometimes you don't get everybody wanting to participate. What I've seen some governing bodies do, whether it be local ETJs, the municipalities, and other counties, or some of our adjacent counties as well, is they'll put a minimum, let's say the developer wants to develop X amount of lots, they'll put a cutoff on building permits or lots being able to be recorded as sold until the streets are taken over. And it's a small window at the very tail end, but that is something that y'all could consider if it's not already being considered. I'm not sure.
Right.
Mr. Crumple and Mr. Wood have to speak more on that, of the county's policies, but that is something that some other municipalities and governing bodies are thinking about in their planning stages and how to proceed with that. It's coming up more and more often than it has been in the past.
All right, Commissioner Mayo.
I understand, Mr. Wood, that in the planning board looking at this, or have they already looked at it?
They're looking at it.
Okay, so what we're talking about here is in the process, is that right,
You
Chip?
cannot withhold building permits, and you cannot require a maintenance bond. The North Carolina legislature made those two avenues unavailable to local government this past legislative session. So that was signed as a bill and signed by the governor. So you can't withhold building permits. A lot of jurisdictions were withholding 25% of the building permits or requiring a maintenance bond post-construction. You can still require a maintenance bond pre-construction for the installation of improvements, but after it's installed, there's nothing you can do requiring a bond or withholding building permits.
Okay, Commissioner Aycock.
Yes, and you get back to the piping. Is it permissible to actually have the piping in as long as it's installed to DOT specs? Or is that, you don't encourage it, I'm pretty sure, but I know, I don't remember what the distance is, but I know if you do piping like that for your property, every so often you got to have a catch basin.
Correct.
And I'm quite sure there's no catch basins on these streets. Is that not correct? You can, if you want it and you got the money, you can do it.
That's the encroachment of all the ones I've talked about that we will allow. And like I said, it is through encroachment, just like any utility that's owned out there. It is through encroachment. So there's a review process. that we have established. We'll review it, look at the pipe materials, everything. It gives us a chance to inspect it as well, because any encroachment, we inspect and make sure it's put in like it needs to be. And that way, if the property owner decides that they want to go that route, then we're pretty confident it's going to be adequate to not cause anybody else any problems. A lot of the drainage issues, as I'm sure y'all are aware of, not necessarily a problem for the person that put it in, but it's a problem from folks downstream or upstream if it's an insufficient structure. So that's what we look at, and that's what the criteria we base it on. But there is an acceptable process that our office does quite frequently that we'll be more than happy to entertain once these streets are back on the state system.
Commissioner Bell?
I'd just like to make a brief comment. I think it's ridiculous to build something today just to get by, and then 15 years from now, we got to come back and dig everything up and start over again. That don't make sense, really. It ought to be done acceptable at the beginning. I don't know. I'm not an engineer.
Let me go to Commissioner Mayo. He was next, and then I'll get you.
I want to reiterate that, and I agree with Commissioner Bell, is that every day that we wait to put in something in place to prevent this from happening the next 20 or 30 years, we have subdivisions that we are approving almost monthly still. And as of a year later or 6 months later, we still don't have any policies in place to make sure that these streets are put under the DOT with the DOT's standards approved. My concern is that we got a big job ahead of us. This is not going to be cheap, and of course, Mr. Harrell, you know this already in your preliminaries, to fix all these roads. I think the key that we need to start looking at, and I'm calling on the planning board to go ahead and get something in place, a recommendation, as soon as possible to stop the hemorrhaging possibilities of this happening 20 or 30 years from now.
Well, let me address, go ahead, Ed, and then I'll address that.
That's the reason that I was wanting to
Commissioner Kamar.
try to get Mr. Crumpler is working diligently on that. I serve on the planning board with him, and we had I'll call it a discussion or a work session at our last planning meeting with at least one surveyor and maybe two surveyors who have an integral part in this whole matter and have broad knowledge about subdivisions being laid out, maintained, and so forth. It's not a simple issue, and there are already rules in place that folk have to go through, but I won't try to delve into the weeds, but all to say, gentlemen, I recognize this is a problem, and at some point, I'm sure Mr. Crumpler is going to provide a work session similar to what we saw the other night, so that there'll be a greater understanding for us and the public about subdivisions, when they're put in, what folks sign off on. We heard a lot the other night, and it is an issue that needs to be brought in a full discussion.
Okay, we might be the go ahead.
Right quick.
Commissioner.
Let's just cut through the chase. The North Carolina DOT has not always been as cooperative as Mr. Harrell and the ones that we're dealing with now. I mean, I've developed property, or my deceased wife developed property, and if she could have got the corporation when she was trying to get some streets taken over that Mr. Harrell's had offered to us, it would have been done. I'm not trying to throw your predecessors under the bus, but they have not always been as cooperative to work with as what we're dealing with now. Thank you.
Good point. Okay, any other comments? Being none, if I could just point out to Commissioner Bell and everybody, your current ordinance says you have to build the streets to DOT standards. And that is being done in all of them that are being built. Where the problem is DOT has additional rules as to when they can accept them. And you've got to have so many lots,
that have houses on them.
Minimum number of occupied homes, which is 2 for every 2 for every tenth of a mile. If it's a cul-de-sac, it has to have 4 occupied homes.
So, and then, as Chip just mentioned to you, the legislature has said you can't put in these other things to try to make sure that that's happening.
So to follow up on that, just to go back to this, we've got some things in place. We also have a statement on the subdivision plat now that says the developer is responsible for the maintenance until it's submitted to DOT and they approve it. The problem you get into is what Mr. Harrell said earlier. These are done as LLCs, limited liability corporations. And a smart developer will make every subdivision or every phase of a subdivision a separate LLC. And for an obvious reason, if that one goes broke, he doesn't want his whole company going broke. And so at some point, some of these LLCs get dissolved, in which case, even though we have that statement on the plat, we don't have a party to go against on that to get it fixed. I think there are things we can do at the planning board level and at the county level, but we're really tweaking it. The real issue has to be resolved at the state level, and that is this delay between a developer finalizing his subdivision and getting it approved and the time it takes for DOT to take it over, because that delay is what is causing a lot of these problems. But we can't resolve that. That has to be resolved at the state level because that's a DOT policy. Giles isn't responsible for that. We're not responsible for that. That's set at the state level.
All right, one more comment.
Real
Commissioner
quick,
Mayor.
real quick.
Go ahead.
The policies we have in place, that's been in place since about 1992 or 3 or earlier, obviously haven't worked. What I'm concerned about is we need some policies with some teeth in it. If we have subdivisions in my district, and of course I'm sure they're all over the county, these subdivision developers and these contractors are still in business that built these subdivisions in my districts 30 years ago. So the percentage that the DOT is asking for to be built in order for you to take them over has always been in place. These subdivisions are way overbuilt. They're 99% built. Why is it that over a 30-year period that the DOT or someone has been negligent in getting everything right for the DOT to take it over? If we're only going to patch what we have, we're going to end up with the same thing 30 years from now.
Well, one of the changes that he's putting into the ordinance is that the subdivider has to apply as soon as possible for DOT approval, isn't that right?
Or what? What's the consequences? Since the legislature has changed, and I understand in Johnson County, Mr. Harrell, you might know this, but I'm pretty sure Johnson County has the building permits ordinance in place. Because I've talked to some people over there. They've had it for 3 or 4 years or longer. They're having zero issues because what happens is that it has enough grip and enough effect that the county don't have to sue or spend any money.
But that's what the legislature just did away with.
Maybe we need to get up with the legislature, Mr. Chairman, and see if we can get that.
Point well made. Point well made. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Giles.
All right, we're gonna move now to, he took all your time then. Wayne County Board of Elections presentation. Maybe yours won't be as quite as contentious.
I can talk about some potholes now. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name's Dane Beavers. I'm the director here at the Board of Elections, and I have with me my deputy director, Miss Beverly York. This morning, we'd like to just take a few moments to go over some of the changes that we're about to experience in the election process. As you all know, and I'm sure you're all very active right now in your campaign. maybe not, since you don't have any, all of you but one don't have any competition. But we are in the process now of putting together our precinct officials list and starting our training process for the voter ID laws that have taken effect in 2016 for the first time. You will be required to present a photo ID when you present yourself to cast your ballot, either in an early voting site or on election day. The rules are the same. The only exception to that is absentee voting. You will not be required to present a photo ID to cast an absentee ballot. And there is another exception for curbside voting. Curbside voting is not that much different than regular voting because you are presenting yourself in a polling place. But according to the state law, a curbside voter will be allowed to cast a ballot with proof of only their name and address on what we call a HAVA document, which is an electric bill, a bill from a government agency, something that shows your name and address on it, or bank statement, something like that. So that's basically the voter ID things. I'll go over with you real quick about what forms of voter ID are acceptable, just in case you have any questions. A driver's license issued by North Carolina State Division of Motor Vehicles, including a learner's permit or provisional license, and they may be expired for up to 4 years. So if you have an expired driver's license that's no older than 4 years expired, it is an acceptable form of ID. Now remember, when we talk about ID, in this case, we're talking about a photo. The address on the ID, it does not come into play here. Your address as you registered with the Board of Elections is what we use to determine your eligibility to vote, not the address on your photo ID. So we are looking at a picture. That's the difference between the rules that we're going to start in 2016. A state identification card issued by the North Carolina State Motor Vehicles. Card may also be expired up to 4 years. United States passport, this needs to be unexpired, including both the passport book and the passport card that are issued by the United States Department of State. A United States military ID card issued by the State Department of Defense, including those issued to dependents, retired military personnel, or civilians. A military ID bearing an expiration date must be unexpired. Military ID cards without an expiration date are also acceptable. We will also accept a veteran's ID card issued by the United States Department of Veteran Affairs. A veteran's ID card bearing an expiration date must be unexpired. But veterans' ID cards without an expiration date are also acceptable. And then we get into tribal enrollment cards issued by federally recognized tribes. If the card bears an expiration date, it also must be unexpired. If it does not bear an expiration date, it must bear a printed issuance date that is not older than 8 years before it's presented for voting. A tribal enrollment card issued by a state-recognized tribe, provided it's been approved by the State Board of Elections. This card must be unexpired. And lastly, a driver's license or non-operator's identification card issued by another state, the District of Columbia, or a territory of Commonwealth of the United States, but only if the voter registered to vote within 90 days of the election, and this card must also be unexpired. So as you can tell, we've got a pretty big challenge that we're looking at here to get our precinct officials trained on recognizing these IDs. It's going to be a challenge. The State Board has created some materials that we're just using now and beginning to implement in our training classes, and they're going to be real useful for us. They do have a lot of pictures and 1, 2, 3 guides to help determine what happens to a voter when they present themselves either with an ID or without. Recently, the law was amended to allow for a reasonable impediment. Reasonable impediment is to help folks who don't have an ID. I think originally the rules, the legislators looked back at the law and discovered that we need to have some exceptions. If you had an accident on your way to the polls and it was election day and it's your last opportunity to vote, and you lost your driver's license, or it was stolen, or things happen and you don't have any options, if you present yourself in that situation now, you can claim a reasonable impediment, and you will be able to cast provisional ballot. Provisional ballots will be counted as long as you meet the minimum requirements that any other voter must meet, and that's to be a registered voter and registered prior to the cutoff dates that we always have. Those have not changed. So a reasonable impediment will allow a lot of different options. There is an option for an absentee ballot. If you show up at an early voting site with no ID and we identify that you are a registered voter and you can cast your ballot, we'll give you several options. So one of them would be to sign a reasonable impediment saying that you lost your driver's license or you were not able to acquire a voter ID card of any type because of different circumstances. Then we will allow you to cast a provisional ballot in that case. We'll also give you the option to cast an absentee ballot. So there's going to be about 3 or 4 different options if you do present yourself to vote without an ID card. The motto for us this year is never turn someone away from a polling place without an opportunity to cast their ballot, either a regular ballot or a provisional ballot. That pretty much covers the part I want to talk about voter ID. And I'll just ask if anybody has any questions at this time about voter ID. It's pretty straightforward. Most of the time, folks that show up to vote have their driver's license in their hand. And for the past 2 years, since we've waited on this law to take effect, we're always telling people, okay, we're glad you have it, but we don't need it yet. But starting March 3rd, when we start voting early this year, we will be looking at your voter ID card. You will still be required to state your name and address, just like you always have. The only change basically comes down to the precinct official looking at your picture and looking at you and making a determination that those two, that you match your ID, and you will be allowed to vote. If there's no questions about voter ID, I'm going to
Actually, I do have a question.
Go right ahead.
Have you seen my picture on my on my driver's license? Some of these pictures don't necessarily reflect the appearance of the individual at that particular time. So
that's a good point.
That may be an issue.
It is, and we are addressing that in our training. The state board has also created some really good videos that we're going to be using to address those type of issues exactly. And the way it's handled is the first person that looks at it, if they aren't able to make a determination if that picture is you, then they will ask the other judges in the polling place, and there's 3 judges, there's a chief judge and 2 judges. They will gather in a quorum, and if any one of those judges decides that that picture is you, then you proceed in normal voting. If all 3 of them determine it's not, then you're still allowed to cast a provisional ballot, again using a reasonable impediment form.
Okay, thank you.
One other question.
Yes, Commissioner Kumar.
Have you all been able to make any determination what percent of the public would not likely be able to vote because of this ID law?
There have been some efforts by the state board in the last couple of elections to gather those statistics I don't have those with me today, and I've not had them shared with me recently, but I do believe those statistics are available through the state board, and I can look that up for you.
And I think the opposition to the ID, the whole ID philosophy is that just under any likely normal circumstances, probably some 8 to 12% of the population may not have that kind of ID on them for whatever reason, based upon the kind of outfit they may be wearing or the simple business of forgetting. And therefore, I'm editorializing just a little bit, but it might just, an election might swing on 10%. And it is perceived that a certain portion of the population, because of lifestyle, jobs, and so forth, would be affected by that, therefore an election swinging on that. And I was hoping that by now, since the legislature in North Carolina decided that they would go that direction, that we might have some specific statistics on how that might really affect the population versus putting something in that no one knows. Just a comment. Thank you, sir.
I understand your concerns, Commissioner, and we are making a large effort to help the public to understand that anybody that falls into that category, whether, and a lot I think goes back to people that maybe never had a birth certificate. And without a birth certificate, it's really hard to get an ID. So the reasonable impediment will address those issues. As long as you're a registered voter, and even if you're not registered, if you show up at our early voting sites, we still have same-day registration. So you can show up at an early voting site and without any voter ID, any type of eligible ID, and still cast your ballot under a reasonable impediment. And all we ask for is a date of birth, social security number, last 4 digit of social security number. And if any of those, if you don't have that, you can still cast your ballot and present to our office at a later date with some sort of a HAVA document, like I said before, a bill from your electric company or your local government tax bill, anything like that you present to us, shows us that is you and that's where you live, your ballot will be counted.
One last thing that I would ask this county to watch for when it comes to getting information from folks. There's a certain age group that were not necessarily born in hospitals, they were born at home by midwives, and oftentimes, and you'll find this sometimes as folks get ready to exercise their option with Social Security, that birth certificate and what Social Security may have, or what your driver's license may say, is different. It is just slight enough that when you first go to get your driver's license, if the person doesn't understand the difference between 22nd and 27th, they will sometimes interchange those. I'm talking about the person who's typing that in. Those are some of the kind of things that is just slight enough to mess up the dates. I just want to bring that to your attention.
I understand.
Do you have anything further?
I was going to ask my deputy to mention just a few things about our precinct official drive, and that's, we'll call that one short.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
We are undertaking and have been for the last several months a drive to recruit new poll workers to our ranks. Clearly, things have changed quite a bit in processing and how we process our vote as the laws have changed, and the changes in law also change the requirements that we have. Clearly, all of the changes that we've talked about are going to be implemented. The success of implementing those changes rests a lot on the poll workers that we have out in our 30 precincts on election day. So we have undertaken for the last few months an effort to recruit new poll workers, and I ask each of you, as you go out into your districts and into the community, to keep in mind that we are still looking for poll workers to work on election day in March, in November, if there's an additional primary, so it's going to be a busy year for us. Requirements to be a poll worker in Wayne County are, first of all, you must be a registered voter in the county. You must be able to read and write. You must be able to attend our training sessions. We have a training session depending on which role poll workers play within our precincts. They must attend mandatory training for that. They are paid for attending training. They're paid for working on election day. They must be able to commit to working a very long day on election day. It starts about 5:30 in the morning and ends on a good day about 8:30 at night. We are looking for people who are comfortable working with the laptop because increasingly we need people who can input and search on data. One of the things that we're seeing is the laptops are becoming more critical to not just running the precinct, but what we find is the more we get away from manual procedure and into automated procedure, we can increase our accuracy and decrease the number of errors that are made. So I would ask each of you and anyone else who knows someone in the community who might be interested in committing to this to please contact our office. We have been able to work with the News Argus has published information. We're working with the Goldsboro Daily News to get the information out. We're going to be doing public service announcements, so we're trying every avenue that we are aware of to get the word out that we're seeking additional poll workers, and would ask that you have them contact our office, excuse me, so that they can understand what the requirements are. And it's also good too if they're in good health. Thank you for your time, and please contact us if you have any questions or have anyone that you would like to get in touch with us about, or have them get in touch with us directly. We're going to be starting our training sessions very soon, so it is getting kind of close to that time. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation and the information.
Thank you.
I believe the sheriff has asked that we move our budget amendment item 8 up. So if you will, let's go ahead and discuss budget amendment 264. We need to get him out there so he can continue to fight crime.
Good morning. We have budget amendment number 264. This would be page 57 in your agenda packet for $33,000, and this is moving money for from your seized property monies to purchase a dive team vehicle and equipment, and I will let the sheriff explain more on that.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good morning.
I do want to point out, Sheriff, now, I did not ask that you make an explanation on this.
That's fine, it's no problem.
Okay, go ahead.
I can justify this very easily.
That's all I, excuse me, Mr. Chair, that's all I want, is just explanation. I'm not saying that I'm not for it and all, but I mean, this much money, I just think that the citizens of the county need to know why, even though it's from seized property or whatever, they still need to know where the money's, where it's going and what it's going to be used for.
Absolutely, no problem. We have been using a pickup at the annex to do what you need to haul stuff around on a pickup. And it's a 2003 model that was a surplus vehicle from the animal control facility, and the engine has locked up. I have a dive team truck right now that's a F-150 that has really not got enough muscle to pull that trailer. So I would like to take that pickup from the dive team and put it at the annex to do our normal hauling and replace that with F-250. And that's what I was asking for.
Any questions of the sheriff?
I make a motion that we approve the budget amendment number 264.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on the motion? Being none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Thank you very much, Sheriff.
Thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner Aycock. I agree. Anything of that amount, we probably need to bring that on out. Okay, we are now going to move to item 3. Item 3 is a motion to approve modification of the public comment portion of the agenda. And you will find that on pages 71 and 72. Mr. Wood.
Basically what we have here, there was a difference on what was printed on the agenda and what's in here. The agenda said 45 minutes, but it's 10 minutes before the meeting. It says the public comment portion of the agenda will be moved to 15 minutes after the meeting begins. And the reason it's worded that way is our normal meeting time is 9, and so that would be the 9:15, but there may come a time where you decide to do a special meeting, or you have one at night or something like that, and so by wording it this way, it's no problem. It's just 15 minutes after the meeting starts. Anyone desiring to address the Board of Commissioners must sign up with the clerk to the Board of Commissioners 10 minutes before the meeting on the day of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners meeting. Requests shall be in writing and on the form that is attached hereto, and that's on the next page. It's very simple. Just print your name, address, phone number, topic you want to speak about, and whether it's on the agenda or not on the agenda. Comments based on matters on the agenda are limited to 4 minutes per speaker. That's the policy we have now. If the comment is about something not on the agenda, comments are limited to 2 minutes. Speakers are encouraged to pick up a copy of the agenda before they speak and make specific reference to the item to which they are speaking if they are speaking to an item on the agenda. This will be on the sign-up sheet. The chairman of the Board of Commissioners shall make the final determination as to whether a speaker is speaking with respect to an item on the agenda or speaking with respect to an item not on the agenda.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the modification to the public comment portion. Is there any discussion? If there is not any discussion, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. And that is approved. Our next item is a motion to approve job reclassifications in emergency services. And who is going to speak on that matter? Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Commissioners. As we went over in the 8 o'clock session, I'll briefly recap what you have before you. This is a reclassification request from the OES office, and this was established as one of the goals that we set forth early in the year, was to get our paramedic pay comparable to our surrounding market where we're losing employees to. And this is kind of the second part of some reclassifications that we did at the previous meeting for the Sheriff's Department. I'd hoped to get them done at the same meeting, but it took a little more time on the Sheriff's Department. And but this reclassification is for paramedic positions and up in our department in OES. In paramedic field, you have a basic, which is your kind of entry level emergency responder. You have an intermediate, and then the paramedic. But our goal is to get our department operating at the paramedic level. That provides a greater level of care throughout the county. And our goal is to have 2 paramedics on every truck that we go to these calls. So we're trying to put the incentive on the paramedic certification in our department. We did a salary survey. We did it twofold. First, we did a survey of counties of similar size, population, and budget. And the second part of it, which was probably more revealing, was that we did a study of the adjoining counties where we lose employees. Some of those numbers are skewed by the, like your Wake counties and your Orange counties. So we took those out of the average. But on average, we were about $4,000 less in the overall market as far as average salaries for paramedics. So with Ms. Lee's help in HR, what you have before you is a classification request to get these salaries more in line. They would be on par with what Johnson County is paying their paramedics. And then it would also be very competitive in our surrounding area where we have been losing paramedics to. And I think it'll also go a long way into placing the emphasis on providing a greater level of care in the county, and that's one of our departmental goals as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on this request.
Yes, Commissioner Pate.
First of all, thank you, Ms. Lee, for the work you've done on this. in my experience, reclassifications is difficult work, to say the least. And I appreciate the work you've done on this, and how it'll help us keep from losing staff from, to other counties, because it's happening every day. But I guess the other question I have, and I recall, I think you said, Mr. Wood, that we will have used up the amount of money that we put aside in this budget for reclassification studies, and we'll be a
That's
year or
correct.
so.
Actually, we've exceeded that amount, but by doing them, making them March 1, we don't have to fund for a full year.
Right.
But what that means, Bill, is that when we look at next year, we've already eaten into some of that as well.
That's
Because if you remember, our plan was to try to do about 300,000 new money every year for several years and gradually get these things done. So when you add what we did with the deputies, the deputy sheriffs and the jail, to this, we're over the 300,000. So we'll bleed into next year's usage.
I guess my point is to let the other folks out there in that workforce know that they're not
Right.
being forgotten.
That's right.
If we have to eat this elephant one bite at a time, as you like to say.
That's right. And it's probably a 4 to 5 year process.
We started at the most critical two that we had the most issues with recruitment and retention.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, Commissioner.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Burns, are we not getting pressure from the state to move our level of responders up? I mean, we used to,
Well-
you have to have near the credentials that you do now.
Right.
Isn't that kind of,
Well, the training requirements are becoming increasingly more, the level of responsibilities that paramedics have now are much more than they have been in the past. And for us, we want to provide a greater level of care. There's certain medications that paramedics can administer prior to the arrival at the emergency room that a basic or an intermediate can administer. And particularly with our cardiac calls, that's where we really want to see the increased emphasis on that patient care.
And in discussing this, we looked at the basic and the intermediates, and our thought process was, we're able to recruit the basics, and that's somebody coming in the door with a basic level of certification. But we wanted to put it into the paramedics because we want to incentivize for people to get the higher certification. So we didn't want to just take those up for the sake of taking them up. If they complain about it, our answer to that is, get your paramedics license.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the job reclassification?
so move?
Okay, a motion by Chairman Aycock. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Being none, if you'll raise your right hand for those who approve. And that is unanimous approval.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, the next item, if I'm correct here, should be item 7, which is a selection of an architect for our 911.
Right. Well, as I said at the 8 o'clock meeting, we had a group that went down last week. I forget the exact day. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. But we went down to Brunswick County and looked at their brand-new 911 center. And I should also say that was designed by the same architect that we had selected. And what we're recommending is the group that went, which was the facilities committee plus about 5 staff members, discussed it. And what we'd like to do is ask y'all to authorize me to negotiate a contract with our architect. We think we've done our due diligence on this, but we're at a point now where we need an architect's assessment of the various cost benefits on this, because we don't know how much renovation of something will cost versus a new facility. It's going to take an architect to do that and evaluate these various sites. So we have 3 potential sites that are renovations and 2 that would be property that the county owns, and we would build a new facility there. So the study would basically be analyze those, give us the pros and cons, and give us cost estimates of each one so that we can look at the relative benefits and decide. Then we would come back with that study. You would decide which way you want to go on one of those 5 options. At that point, the contract would then kick in to do the design phase of that. So we're recommending that you authorize the manager to negotiate all of that. And of course, I'll be bringing the contract back to you, so this is just to authorize me to negotiate it, and then we bring it back to you for acceptance.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move that we authorize the county manager to negotiate a contract with Stewart Cooper Newell to study 5 options for a new 911 center and to design the selected options. These 5 options are: renovate 2 buildings in front of the facilities maintenance office and add on. Renovate the facilities office and relocate them. Renovate the existing brick building at facilities tire site. Build a new building on the county-owned land behind the animal shelter. Build a new building on the county-owned land adjacent to our communications tower at facilities services. And I put that in the form of a motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? If I can take a liberty, I do have some questions here. My understanding is that in looking at the facility in Brunswick County, that facility was in fact paid for from a grant. And Mr. Powers, you may want to step up here to answer some of these questions. But I want to make sure everybody is understanding some of our options here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. This facility that we viewed was actually paid for from a grant. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, yes, sir.
And that grant was $2.1 million, if I understood.
Yes, sir.
And as such, if it is paid for with grant, then the 911 board requires specific construction methodology.
They have specific construction standards that you have to follow. Yes, sir.
In that, we are not going to be able to obtain a grant, and that these funds are being paid for by county funds, we are not obligated to build it to those standards.
Not to the state standards on communications. No, sir.
Well, some of those standards, I had some real issues with. I don't think it's necessary that we have bulletproof glass all the way around. There were some issues that I had with some of those standards. However, since we're paying for it, we do not have to use those standards. Is that correct?
Correct. We only have to build to essential facility standards.
That's correct. So we just want to make sure that the architect is not using the standards that the state is required, but those that will allow us to build this facility here locally using local funds. Just want to make sure we all understand that. Yes, Commissioner Mayo.
So am I understanding that there is no grants available for us to build ours?
We can apply for grants.
Are we not qualified for grants? So let me ask you that.
Well, if you remember, we applied and we did not get it. I think out of, Mel, correct me, I think there were 23 applications.
23 applicants. And we were actually, I think, number 4.
But only 2 or 3 got selected.
How often can you apply?
What's the window?
Every year.
Every year. So we may get the plan, get the plans done and make another run at it.
Right. The problem with the grants is they are focusing on regionalization. So they want you to combine your 911 centers with other counties, and they are taking the bulk of the money. So, for example, it's our understanding that the city of Fayetteville has their own 911 center. Cumberland County has their own 911 center. They're going to be putting in a grant to consolidate into one 911 center. They would take priority over any other grant that comes available.
So we're not sure we would rank as high next time, because when we put this grant in, we were in discussions with Greene County to look at them coming in with us. That has since, I guess, fizzled, for lack of a better word. In other words, they're not going to do it. So that would not help our chances based on the fact they're pushing regional systems.
See, y'all, if I could respond to that just a bit. Y'all talk all the way around the thing. The bottom line is the likelihood of us getting a grant is 0 to 1%. In that, Green has already made some decision of regionalization with somebody else. They've already partnered, and we are not able to get a partner. And as such, the 911 board is only approving those grants for regionalization. So, and furthermore, we're under now a time restraint because we really got to move along. We were supposed to have this system up and running by the end of June of this year. So we're really behind the 8 ball. These are, I want to say, probably 80% viable that we're going to use local funds. Yes, Commissioner.
Just to follow up on on your comment, so there's not any other partners that we could partner with, and is there a reason why, everything is going regional. So is there a particular reason why we wouldn't try to pull every string we could to partner with someone in order, if nothing else, in order to move up the ladder for a grant?
Well,
If we get a grant, we don't particularly, we can adhere to what their standards are if they're paying for it,
Well, the answer to
Well, I
that.
agree with you on
But the
that.
answer to that is there is nobody else
Yeah, there is.
around. Lenore and Jones County have gone in together.
So you can't have more than 2, you can't have 3?
No,
You gotta have the other entities have to agree with it, and 2 is about what they're doing with the consolidations and regionalizing, so, I don't believe we would find anybody. In fact, we've talked to several, and Greene County was one that, at one time, they thought they might would, but then in further conversations, it, like the county manager said, it kind of fizzled out.
but to go back to your question, we don't think it's out there.
Okay.
We've looked, we toured the Lenore County facility as well, and they're in a renovated facility. They would not be able to accommodate us because we're a bigger county than Lenore population-wise. There's no way, they would have to fundamentally double or maybe 1.5 times the size of what they have to accommodate us.
Well, and to also clarify, the equipment that's going to go in there are actually, we'll get grants for that.
Yeah.
To actually upfit it. But the actual construction, it just isn't in the cards. It's beyond the time now. We've made every effort to try to partner, and at this point, we're going to have to use local funds for the actual physical, and yes.
There is one thing we discussed a little bit about is if we could ask our legislature for consideration to have legislation written to use our existing 911 fund balance for brick and mortar. So that's still, let's make sure we tap that if we can.
Okay, and Commissioner Aco.
Well, Mr. Gurley just covered basically what I was thinking, but, if that can pass a, resolution or whatever, so we could use it for brick and mortar. But the 911 funds that are there, we can use it for equipment inside of the new building, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's probably gonna be about as much expense as actually building the building.
Correct.
Because if we do it, we want to do it right. We want to do it so it's gonna last the county for 20 years. We may not be here, but we still, that's the pulse of the county. And we want it so it'll be can go at least 20 years before. And we need to do it, my thoughts are we need to do it just like the jail. Build it for what we need now and go out maybe 15, 20 years, but have it so that facility can be added on to at some point.
Commissioner Moore.
Well, I heard Mr. Mayo, I'll piggyback his question. I heard you talk about Lenore and those, but have you tested Dublin and Sampson as partners?
And what we have to remember also, when we talk about consolidating 911 with these funds, it's just that, 911, which is your 911 telephone. We always have to take into consideration our radio system as well. So if we start trying to partner too far out, then you start coming into issues with our radio system.
When you say you're talking the distance, the mileage, the distance that they will work.
Yes, sir. If we start partnering, let's just say, for example, there's another county that we partner with, but they're running UHF radios, then we've got to figure out how we're going to combine the UHF and the VHF. So when you start talking about regionalizing and consolidations, you just don't look at the phone systems. You have to look at anything and everything that we operate within that 911 center has to be compatible, or you'll have to do like Lenore and Jones County. They had to put in a whole brand new radio system to cover both counties.
Right.
We ain't going there again.
No. Okay, any other comments or questions?
One comment, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
okay.
Just, I want to charge our county manager again to make sure, after everything we've talked about and what we all that's up in there, we're talking about spending money, make sure you watch our finances. We do not want to do a tax increase.
We're not planning on it.
Okay, please keep an eye on it.
We have a
Thank you.
motion on the floor to approve the selection of an architect to examine 5 options.
That's right. And to design the, whichever one you select. In other words, I want to get the contract negotiated on the front end for all of it.
Sure.
You've
Okay.
got more
Well, we're gonna have
leverage.
to have an architect for whatever one of
That's
those
right.
5 that we select.
And you've got more leverage if you put it all together.
Sure, okay. All right, motion on the floor, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. A unanimous vote. And we have handled the number 8 already. Is there anything remaining on our agenda that needs to be handled? I think I've probably checked everything. We now are going to county manager's comments.
I've got just a few brief comments to make. Number one, in the back of your packet under FYI for your information, I just wanted to call everybody's attention. I thought it was an excellent email that we got from Betsy Roseman talking about the impact of Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. If you haven't had an opportunity to read that yet, I think the critical thing is that the base employs approximately 7,000 personnel, including active duty and reserve military members, civilians, and private businesses, with an overall economic impact for 2014 exceeding $594 million. So basically $600 million economic impact in Wayne County. So I wanted to call that to your attention. The second thing is I wanted to make you aware, some of you were involved in this, so you already know. At the airport, we decided to change engineering consultants several months ago. We have sent out an RFQ. Those requests for qualifications have come back in. We narrowed that down from 5 to 3, and we had a committee that interviewed those 3 people late last week, and they will be forwarding a recommendation to the Airport Advisory Committee, and then once the Airport Advisory Committee looks at it, they'll make a recommendation to you. So this would be for our engineering consultant. Again, but this is on an as-needed basis. It's not a specific project at this time, it's just on an as-needed basis. The second thing that we're working on, I want you to be aware of, is, as y'all know, you voted to go with the construction manager at risk option on the Agricultural and Convention Center. We have prepared the request for qualifications for that, sent those out. We received 5 of those. And where we're at right now is the committee will be meeting tomorrow to go over those and probably narrow that down to probably 2 or 3 to fully interview. And at that point, they'll establish dates for interviews, get that done. Our hope is that at the next meeting, February the 2nd, that committee will have a recommendation back to the full board. Does anybody have any questions on any of that? Okay. I believe that's what I have, except for one thing, I'm not sure. Yeah, here we go. We wanted to introduce Nikisha Bowden. You say Bowden or Bowden? Bowden. Nikisha is taking Pat Garner's place in our office, and so she'll be
working under Cindy as her assistant, and she's from Mount Olive. Is that correct? And we're delighted to have her on our staff.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, under the Board of Commissioners' comments and reports, Commissioner Bell?
I have two quick comments, Mr. Chairman. I attend the juvenile justice. Not much going on there. They're still doing a good job and not creating any kind of problems. They're still operating with a lot of grants and other resources, not asking for a lot of county funds. My second comment is about East Point. As you know, you may not know, Ken Jones is retiring as of 1 April. Okay, there's about 100 employees here in Wayne County. Well, they're going to vacate Wayne County completely.
They are?
Yeah, because we're kicking them out of the building. Now, this is the first time in 15 years that I've been on this board that I've seen us give up 100 employees to take over a building. And they're not only that, they're paying us, what, $10,000 a month? And I think we need to take a good look at that. I kind of stalled them a little bit. I argued the point that we need a presence of East Point in Wayne County. We got Cherry Hospital, all the mental health thing. Not only that, the consumer base for Wayne County is larger than any other county that is associated with East Point. We have many, many more consumers here in Wayne County than the other 11 counties. So I'm asking the commissioners to really take a good look at that before we let them just walk away and go to Lenore County and Wilson. That's where they're going.
Commissioner Mayor? Oh, you're calling on me?
Oh, yes,
I'm
yes.
sorry. I'm sorry, I'm sitting here daydreaming. I've been pretty busy going to the new boards that, and commission I've been assigned to. One of the ones that I think is gonna be, and I'm appreciative to be able to sit on this, is the Eastern Carolina Council that Commissioner Ed Camardi was on, because I did not realize until I went to a 2-hour meeting. I'm sorry?
2 minutes.
Wait, I'm only 15 seconds into it. Go ahead. But that is a very important and has a lot of clout as far as grants and all kinds of community things that's going on. That is a lot to learn. So I'm also on the Goldsboro Wayne Transportation Authority. We're meeting next week. I think that's going to be another interesting board to sit on. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Cromartie. Sorry,
Just very
Commissioner
briefly.
Cromartie.
Yes, sir, thank you. Very briefly, I attended a planning board meeting. We alluded to that. I was only going to say again that there is some very important information that we need to all be made more aware of. I got a good insight from the two gentlemen that I alluded to earlier about subdivisions and all that. And so our planning and thinking need to be really stretched down the road on how our subdivisions are planned and implemented, and what permissions and so forth are given, and what responsibilities. But it is, I heard a gentleman say one time, there are no simple answers to complicated questions, and that's one of them. Also, we were all invited, and John and I rode together to Colonel Slocum's promotion celebration, I guess that's what you call it. And it was a real nice event. I would also say that John might need to invest in his GPS, because he got us lost out there. He decided to take a shortcut to get us back home.
Tell him where it was in the house, in the housing area.
John, you're on my 2 minutes, just over. Also, I would also like to say that I would like to recognize this. I attended 2 Martin Luther King celebrations over the weekend, and of course into yesterday. Mount Olive had its traditional activity held at one of the churches. young man DeMarcus Kelly was the speaker. And yesterday, I thought the News August did a great job of getting the picture back, getting in the newspaper yesterday. Ms. Patsy Faison was a speaker at the MLK celebration at the Raleigh Assembly on Hooks River Road. I believe that's what it's street. So, gentlemen, next year, if we all get a chance to, please let's continue to go at several of our commissioners. And I would like also to say, Mr. Bell, and he didn't toot his own horn, but he gave the welcome for the county commissioner board yesterday, and he gave a key to the county, and I thought he said it would go to banks and all kinds of things where you can go out. Did you say that, Mr. Bell? No, maybe he did.
Commissioner Acon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Keep mine brief. First of all, I want to thank the entire board for the reclassification for our EMS system. It's long overdue, and I just want to thank all of you for that. Also, for the last few weeks, it's been great to have a life of my own again. I didn't realize, how much time that we do spend doing this job. And Miss Doherty, you're going to see, it's going to require a lot, but really, I'm really enjoying having some time with my family and my wife. And finally, I've over the last couple of years, I've been involved with what's going on at the base, and I've had the pleasure last week, Thursday night and Friday, to attend the ceremonies for Senior Master Sergeant Craver, which officially retired. Chief Master Sergeant Craver, which retired Friday. Wayne County's gonna miss that man. That was an incredible individual. But the main thing that really impresses me now when we're having functions at the base and pertaining to the base is anytime that the base commanders and the staff out there, they always mention the cooperation that they're getting with the city of Goldsboro and the county of Wayne. And that hadn't always been the case. Maybe more so with the county than the city, because the city has, they've been a little more involved. But the county is really being involved now, and it's so refreshing to see that they realize the contributions that the county and the city is contributing to the life of the especially the enlisted people out there. Just wanted to pass that on. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Burke?
Make an announcement on behalf of the Public Health Board and the Wayne County Health Department. We're in an effort to make our citizens aware that the Health Department, in partnership with Wayne Memorial Hospital, is conducting the county's community health needs assessment. It's a community survey effort to examine the health issues challenging Wayne County. The county and hospital jointly conducting a survey every 3 years, and community input is very important. We encourage everyone to take the survey. It can be taken online on the county's website, also be taken in hard copy paper format and picked up at the county library, the hospital, watch, or the YMCA. And it only takes about 5-10 minutes, and the deadline is January 31st, so we try to emphasize that and encourage everyone to participate. Secondly, to Mr. Wood and Chip and the planning board, as we didn't take any action on that road name today, I feel like we'll go back to the planning board and ask for those guys to give us back a recommendation. And it's going to be a difficult task. There was 5 names suggested today, or minimum 5 names. I think there's probably some alternate to each one of those names as well. But they're all great names and honored outstanding people, and I don't think any of them would disagree there. And I trust the planning department will make a just recommendation to us. But Chip, I guess what I want to make sure that we're very cautious of whenever naming streets and roads and cul-de-sacs and circles, et cetera, make sure we don't use any similar names. It gets very confusing. We got all electronic needs there is out there, yes, but in the moment it is confusing from time to time for first responders. So I just ask you to be very cautious with that. And lastly, Mr. Wood,
mentioned about the consultant for the Jetport. Our next Jetport meeting is February the 9th. If you want anything before that, we'll just have to schedule something, but if not, that'll be our earliest meeting.
Okay.
So,
I
thank
think
you.
we'd probably be okay, just wait till then, and then you guys could make the appointment February 16th.
Yeah, with nothing pushing on.
Nothing pushing right now.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pate?
I want to thank you for bringing it and give us an update on construction manager risk, because I suspect here in the next 35 minutes when we go to Farm Bureau, somebody's going to ask where we are
Right.
on this
Right.
particular project. Mr. Adcock and I both went to the Carl Best Agriculture Group at West Farms about 2 weeks ago, whatever it was exactly. And you talk about a bunch of excited farmers over at the Regional Agriculture Center, and I had not planned to speak, but I was given the opportunity, and so was Wayne. That they are really excited, and they want to be kept up to date. Went to the Dr. King celebration yesterday, and where John spoke, and he gave away the key to the city, like you said, Ed. And I heard Chuck Allen speaking, and he reached out to the community. We all recognize we've got some crime problems out there, and it's going to take all of us together to solve it. And he reached out, and everyone was with him on that, and I was glad to see him bring that up. Kids singing yesterday, outstanding. You just have to be there to see it. And I think Chuck told the lady yesterday, too, says, she was such a great speaker. He said, if I had worked on that speech for 3 weeks, I'd have never gotten close to what you did, and that's the truth. We met, George and I met with Scott and Betsy Roseman, Tourism Board, and to look at the statutes to make sure that we're going to be operating this board properly, and what we can do and what we can't do. And I want to thank the appointment committee for putting the last person on that board this morning. Went to the OES staff meeting for the first time last Monday. I know a great deal about them, but I don't know as much as I'm going to know when it's all said and done. I want to make sure I know all the players are. Mr. Daughter and I went to training in Raleigh last Friday, and it was interesting. We actually got some things about the chair, vice chair training, and Neil Emery probably calling you about, we misbehaved just a little bit, but not too bad. And finally tonight, Fireman's Banquet. Everybody needs to be there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Bett?
Did you say that for Mr. Casey's benefit about Chuck Allen?
Oh, my goodness.
I forgot he came in late. I wasn't directed to that.
You know, I received this letter, and I want to reach out and give a shout out to a Mrs. Inez Howell Cox. She turns 100 years old, and that's a big milestone, and we want to send her a great deal of congratulations. I also want to let the board know that our first meeting of our working group, analyzing some of the ordinances that was in our goals, did in fact meet. I thought it was a very productive meeting. I think we spent about 2.5 hours. And with the help of Mr. Crumpler from our planning department, I think you all are going to be very pleased with the recommendations coming back to you. Is there anything else to come before the board? If not, we're going to go into recess. I do remind everyone we have lunch at Wayne County Farm Bureau, and we're going to be, after that lunch, we're going to be back here at 2 o'clock for a presentation on coal ash or work session.
No recess.
No recess, okay. Well, we'll be back. We'll be back.
This has been a presentation by Wayne Goldsboro Television of the meeting of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners. Wayne County Commissioners meet the first and third Tuesday of each month in the Commissioners' Meeting Room on the 4th floor of the Wayne County Courthouse at 224 East Walnut Street in Goldsboro, North Carolina. For more information, the County of Wayne is online at www.waynegov.com. The mailing address is Post Office Box 227, Goldsboro, North Carolina 27533.